Hello guys, welcome back sa aking channel. Ngayong araw magdi-discuss tayo ng correlation analysis. So ano ba yung correlation analysis? So ito yung paghahambing o paghahalin tulad ng dalawang continuous variable. Meron kang ratio at interval na variable. May iba't ibang klase ng correlation analysis, pero sa video na to, isa lang yung i-discuss ko, yun yung Pearson correlation. Although, mamaya tingnan natin kung meron ba tayong mga data na pwedeng gamitan ng Spearman correlation. So, ano ba itong dalawang ito? So, yung una, Pearson correlation, it is a statistical analysis tool in finding linear relationship of two continuous variables. So, ano naman ang pinagkaibahan ng Pearson sa Spearman? So, yung Spearman, monotonic relationship between two continuous or ordinal variables. So, ibig sabihin ng ordinal, meron kang order. Hindi pwede na meron kang value in between nung dalawang data points. Ang correlation analysis, meron siyang scale. Basically, yung makukuha mong resulta is from -1 to 1. And meron kang 0 na ibig sabihin no correlation. Kapag ka Pearson, ang value mo, pwede siyang in between ng 0, 1 or 0 tsaka -1. Kapag ka Spearman, most of the time, dumediretso siya ng -1 or +1. Depende kung gaano kataas yung numerical value niya. Kasama ng paggawa ng correlation analysis ay gumagamit din tayo ng scatter plot para ma-visualize natin yung ating data. Sa correlation analysis, meron tayong coefficient, yun yung pagbabasihan natin kung mababa ba o mataas yung correlation ng dalawang variable na pinagkukumpara natin. Yung Greek letter rho, ito yung standard talaga. Pero most of the time, ginagamitan lang natin ng small letter r para masabi natin yung coefficient. Kung ano man yung coefficient na makuha natin sa correlation analysis natin, yun yung hahalin tulad natin dito sa intervals na ito or value range na ito kung mababa ba o mataas ang kanilang correlation sa isa't isa. Yung dalawang continuous variables natin. So kapag ka remember, kapag ka 0, ibig sabihin walang correlation yung dalawang variables natin. Kapag ka 0.01 to 0.19, ibig sabihin very low correlation. 0.2 to 0.39, low correlation. 0.4 to 0.59, moderate correlation. 0.6 to 0.79, high correlation. And then 0.8 to 1.0, sabihin, very high correlation. Now, yung correlation, pwede siyang positive at negative. Positive, sabihin, kapag umangat ang isang value ng variable, aangat din yung value ng kabila. Kapag negative correlation naman, kapag umangat yung value ng isang variable, bababa yung value ng isang variable. So, paano naman tayo magpo-perform ng hypothesis testing? So, yung una, i-state natin ang ating null hypothesis. So, yung null hypothesis, there is no correlation between the variables, between the two variables. H sub 0, rho underscore Pearson equals 0. Kung Spearman naman ang ginamit natin, rho sub Spearman equals 0. Now, yung rho, remember, pwede siyang gawing small letter r na lang. Acceptable yon. Yung alternative hypothesis naman natin, there is a correlation between the two variables. Ibig sabihin, h sub a, rho sub Pearson not equal to 0 or rho sub Spearman not equal to 0. So, ibig sabihin, kung not equal to 0, yung value niya, nandito lang sa pagitan ng mga value na ito. Pero kapag ka 0, ibig sabihin wala silang correlation. So, gumawa tayo ng isang sample. So, open natin yung ating orange tree. Remember, yung dataset natin is yung transformed diabetes dataset na ginamit natin sa student t-test, ginamit natin sa analysis of variance. So, ito rin yung gagamitin natin ngayon sa correlation analysis. Para gumawa tayo ng correlation analysis, so itong area na to ng ating file, click mo lang siya, Then, magkakaroon siya ng linya na ganyan. Drag mo sa pababa. Pag nirelease mo yung iyong mouse, okay, type mo lang correlation. So, lalabas to, click mo lang siya. Then, sa correlation, actually dito, pwede mong piliin kung alin ba yung gusto mong correlation, Pearson ba o Spearman. Lahat ng ating continuous variable kasi, meron siyang interval value, wala siyang order. So, gagamitin natin is Pearson correlation sa ngayon. Then, mamaya tingnan natin kung pwede ba natin gamitan ng Spearman correlation. So, unahin natin ay yung initial HbA1c level. Sa correlation, mas maganda makita natin yung scatter plot tsaka yung regression line, yung R, kung nasaan yung R. So, itong mga broken line na to ng correlation widget natin, left click, then meron siyang linya. Pag nirelease nyo yung left click, so type nyo lang scatter plot, click nyo yung scatter plot. So, lalabas tong edit links orange. So, ang gagawin lang natin is from data na nasa correlation widget, same data lang din yung titingnan natin sa scatter plot widget. So, para makita natin kung alin ba dun yung nasa x-axis, alin ba dun yung nasa y-axis. So, click lang natin to, okay. So, pag ganyan, so, okay na yung correlation mo, nakita natin, meron siyang Pearson correlation, then sa scatter plot, check natin, yan ang resulta. So, punta tayo sa pinakauna, initial HbA1c. Okay, so, nakikita nyo dito, so yung x-axis, dinesignate natin siya as initial HbA1c. So, ito yon makikita natin. Then, yung y-axis, so, pinagkukumpara natin. So, ito yon y-axis, HbA1c _ 6 months. So, ang nakuha nating R, which is yung ating Pearson coefficient, is 0.06. So, base sa ating coefficient, so 0.0, tama ba? 0.08 ang nakuha natin. So, base sa ating correlation, nandito siya. Sa pagitan ng 0.01 hanggang 0.19. So, very low correlation siya. So, gawa tayo ng scientific inquiry. Ano ba yung pwede nating itanong? So, ang pinagkukumpara natin, di ba, initial HbA1c tsaka yung pang-anim na buwan. So, pwede nating itanong, is there a correlation between the initial and 6-month HbA1c level? Tapos, ang null hypothesis natin ay, so, null hypothesis, there is no correlation. There is no correlation between the initial and 6-month HbA1c level. Alternative hypothesis natin is, there is a correlation between the initial and 6-month HbA1c level. So, yung R natin or yung rho is 0.08 and ang interpretation natin ay very low, di ba? Tama ba? Kasi yung tama, very low. Very low. Tapos nakita natin, no, yung value is positive kasi pataas. So, habang tumataas yung value ng HbA1c na initial, tataas din yung HbA1c na pang-anim na buwan. So, 0.08 positive value siya. So, there's very low positive correlation. So, ang magiging conclusion natin ay there is a very low positive correlation between the initial and 6-month HbA1c level. Tapos, ang gagawin lang natin, screenshot lang natin yung ating scatter plot kasama no regression line natin. at copy natin siya. So, paliitin natin. So that's it. So, yan na yung iyong correlation analysis para sa dalawang variable na ito. Gagawin natin siya sa lahat ng continuous variable ng ating dataset. So, i-speed up ko lang ulit yung ating process and then mamaya i-discuss natin yung makukuha nating resulta, interpretation, tsaka conclusion doon sa ibang continuous variable. Okay, sa correlation analysis pala, meron tayong kasabihan na correlation does not mean causation. Ibig sabihin, yung dalawang continuous variables na pinagkukumpara mo, hindi ibig sabihin na yung isang variable na nasa x-axis, siya ang nagkokos nung nasa y-axis or vice versa. Hindi ibig sabihin na pag mataas yung kanilang correlation, yung isang variable ay inaapektuhan yung isa pang variable. Hindi ibig sabihin ganon. Ang ibig sabihin na ng correlation ay kapag ka ang movement or yung pagtaas ng data points ng isang variable ay kasabay lang nung pagtaas or pagbaba nung isa pang variable. So, hindi ibig sabihin na itong variable 1 siya ang dahilan kung bakit tumataas itong variable 2 or vice versa. Ibig sabihin, pagtaas o pagbaba ni variable 1 ay kasabay lang ng pagtaas o pagbaba ng value ni variable number 2. Okay? Pero hindi ibig sabihin yung isang variable ay inaapektuhan yung isa pa. Okay? So, yun yung importante sa ating correlation analysis. Correlation does not mean causation. Okay, so natapos na natin yung fast forward ng paggawa ng hypothesis testing, pagtingin ng scatter plot, at pag-check ng ating coefficient. Check natin yung mga natapos natin. So ito yung pinakauna nating ginawa, di ba? Yung initial, pinagkumpara natin initial tsaka pang-anim na buwan na HbA1c level. So yung initial natin nasa x-axis, yung pang-anim na buwan nasa y-axis. So, ito yung ating regression line. Pearson coefficient natin nasa 0.08. So, siya ay a very low positive correlation. Ang ating conclusion, there is a very low positive correlation between initial and 6-month HbA1c level. Yung susunod, pinagkumpara naman natin yung initial tsaka yung pang-12 buwan na HbA1c level. Medyo mas mataas siya, no? Kasi ito yung ating regression line. Tapos yung Pearson coefficient natin, yung R, is 0.14. So, ang ating interpretation is it's still very low positive correlation. So, ang conclusion natin is there is a very low positive correlation between the initial and 12-month HbA1c level. Pagkumparahin naman natin yung initial HbA1c level and initial systolic blood pressure. So, yung null hypothesis natin, walang correlation. Yung alternative, merong correlation. So, yung nakuha natin is negative 0.15. Okay, so hindi ko alam kung bakit siya baligtad. Okay, pero yung value niya is negative 0.15. So, pababa siya. Okay, kapag umangat itong initial HbA1c, bababa, okay, yung initial systolic blood pressure. So, habang tumataas, bumababa naman to. So, yung interpretation natin is very low negative correlation. So, pwede natin i-conclude that there is a very low negative correlation between the initial HbA1c level and the initial systolic blood pressure. Check naman natin ang initial HbA1c sa pang-anim na buwan systolic PP. So, ganun din, habang umakit si initial, pababa naman si systolic blood pressure na pang-anim na buwan. So, yung nakuha nating R, o coefficient is negative 0.1. So, very low negative correlation pa rin. Next, pagitan ng initial HbA1c and pang-12 buwan na systolic blood pressure. So, yung nakuha natin slightly positive. So, 0.01 yung R natin. So, very low positive correlation. Next, initial HbA1c level and diabetes duration. So, nakita nyo naman yung regression line natin is pababa talaga. So, habang umaakyat yung value nitong initial HbA1c natin from 8 to 12, bumababa yung value ng diabetes duration natin. So, meron tayong nakuha na coefficient na negative 0.24. Ito ay low negative correlation. Sa pagitan naman ng initial HbA1c level tsaka ng edad. So, makikita nyo, negative 0.05 yung ating coefficient. Tapos yung regression na natin, parang halos horizontal na, no? Ibig sabihin, very low negative correlation. Initial HbA1c and body mass index, yung coefficient na nakuha natin is negative 0.15. So, there's a very low correlation between these two variables. Initial HbA1c level and the literacy score. So, habang umaangat yung HbA1c, bumababa naman yung literacy score. So, yung nakuha nating coefficient is negative 0.12. Hindi ko alam kung bakit siya baliktad. At nakita nyo naman yung regression line natin is pababa. So, i-interpret natin siya as very low negative correlation, and we can conclude that there's very low negative correlation between the initial HbA1c level and literacy score. Next, initial HbA1c and the difference. So, remember guys, yung difference na variable natin, ang component nito is yung ika-12 buwan na HbA1c minus the initial HbA1c. So, kung pupuntahan natin ang ating orange tree, yung ating dataset, so data table, click natin. So, ito yun nasa dulo di ba? Ito yung nasa dulo, ito yung difference. So, ang component niyan ay dalawang HbA1c or dalawang column. Yung variable natin na ika-12 buwan na HbA1c minus the initial HbA1c level. So, yun yung resulta ng ating difference. So, dito sa ating scatter plot, very logical na meron talagang malaking correlation ang dalawang variable na ito. Kasi isa sa component nitong variable na ito ay ang initial HbA1c. So, makikita mo yung regression line natin is paangat talaga siya. Yung nakuha natin coefficient is 0.7. So, ang interpretation niya is high positive correlation. We can conclude that there is a high positive correlation between the initial HbA1c level and the improvement. Next is yung pang-anim na buwan na HbA1c versus ika-12 buwan na HbA1c. So, yung Pearson coefficient natin is 0.73, high positive correlation. 6 months HbA1c and initial systolic blood pressure. So, although logically, magkaiba talaga siya kasi yung isa ang pinag-uusapan is sugar, yung HbA1c, tapos yung isa ang pinag-uusapan is BP, yung presyon ng dugo. So, for the sake of practice lang, para ma-practice lang tayo ng interpretation ng ating regression line, coefficient, tsaka pagtingin sa scatter plot, isinama na natin ang mga variables na to. So, yung nakuha nating coefficient is negative 0.03. Ito ay mababa, sobrang baba. Nakita nyo naman yung regression line natin, halos horizontal na. So, ang interpretation nito is very low negative correlation. At we can conclude that there is very low correlation between these two variables. Next, HbA1c and systolic blood pressure both in 6 months, there's a very low negative correlation because our coefficient is negative 0.03. HbA1c and systolic blood pressure, yung ating regression line, okay, nakita nyo, paangat siya. Tapos yung coefficient natin is 0.11. So, ibig sabihin, habang umaangat ang value ng ating HbA1c, umaangat din yung value ng ating systolic blood pressure. Pero, very low positive correlation lang siya. HbA1c and diabetes duration. So, yung ating nakuhang Pearson coefficient is 0.18. So, very low positive correlation. Next is yung HbA1c and yung age. So, makikita natin dito yung regression line natin is pababa. Okay? Tapos, yung nakuha nating R is 0.22. So, ibig sabihin, meron siyang low negative correlation. Next, HbA1c and body mass index. Tingnan mo naman, halos horizontal yung regression line natin. Ang nakuha nating coefficient is negative 0.04. So, siya ay very low negative correlation. HbA1c and literacy score, medyo paangat. Coefficient is 0.06. Very low positive correlation. Dito sa pagkukumpara natin na HbA1c noong ika-6 na buwan tsaka difference, masasabi natin na logical pa rin yung pagkakaroon nila ng correlation kasi parehong HbA1c ang nature ng variables na ito. Nakita nyo naman yung regression line natin ay pababa. So, habang umaangat yung ika-6 na buwan ng HbA1c, bumababa yung difference or yung improvement ng kanilang HbA1c level. Yung nakuha nating Pearson coefficient is negative 0.47. Siya ay moderate negative correlation. So, there is a moderate negative correlation between the 6-month HbA1c level and their improvement. Sa HbA1c level naman, tsaka initial systolic blood pressure, so regression line is pababa. Tapos yung Pearson coefficient natin is negative 0.12. So, ang interpretation nun is very low negative correlation. HbA1c nung ika-12 buwan sa systolic blood pressure nung ika-6 na buwan. So, pababa yung ating regression line. Meron tayong negative 0.14 na Pearson correlation. So, there is very low negative correlation. Pagitan naman ng ika-12 buwan na HbA1c tsaka 12 buwan na systolic BP, medyo paangat siya. Pero ang ating coefficient is 0.04. So, very low positive correlation. HbA1c and diabetes duration, ang nakuha nating coefficient is 0.08, very low positive correlation. Next is the HbA1c and age. Nakita natin, so pababa yung ating regression line. Tapos ang ating coefficient is negative 0.27. Again, hindi ko alam kung bakit siya baliktad. So, habang umaangat yung ating HbA1c na ikalabing-dalawang buwan, bumababa yung ating age. Or pwedeng it's other way around. So, habang tumatanda ang isang tao, bumababa rin yung kanyang HbA1c level. So, there is very low negative correlation between these two variables. Okay, so next is HbA1c and body mass index. We have a coefficient of negative 0.06. So, it's a very low negative correlation. HbA1c and literacy score, medyo paangat yung ating regression line and our coefficient is 0.14. So, ibig sabihin, there's very low positive correlation. So, habang umaangat si HbA1c, umaangat din yung literacy score. Bakit nga ba? Siguro, kasi di ba pag mataas yung HbA1c mo, kasi pag mataas yung HbA1c level mo, madami kang blood sugar. So, maraming blood sugar yung iyong brain. Pero, may insulin ka ba nun? I don't know. Yeah. Sorry. I don't know. Sunod, correlation sa pagitan ng ikalabing-dalawang buwan na HbA1c tsaka difference. So, logical na meron silang correlation kasi ang component ng difference is ikalabing-dalawang buwan na HbA1c. So, yung regression line natin is pababa, okay? And then, yung Pearson coefficient na nakuha natin is negative 0.62. So, there's a high negative correlation between the 12-month HbA1c level and the difference HbA1c level. Next, initial systolic blood pressure and 6-month systolic blood pressure. Nakita nyo naman yung regression line natin, paangat siya. So, ang ating nakuhang coefficient is 0.27, low positive correlation. Same lang din yung initial tsaka ikalabing-dalawang buwan na systolic blood pressure, 0.27, low positive correlation. Systolic blood pressure and diabetes duration, coefficient natin is 0.19, very low positive correlation. Initial systolic blood pressure and age, you have 0.07, very low positive correlation. With body mass index, 0.11, very low positive correlation. With literacy score, negative 0.06 ang ating coefficient, so very low negative correlation. With difference, negative 0.03 ang ating coefficient na nakuha, so very low negative correlation. So nakita niyo naman, no, yung regression line natin halos horizontal na. So, visually, masasabi natin, very low talaga yung correlation natin. Systolic BP nung ika-6 na buwan, tsaka systolic BP nung ikalabing-dalawang buwan. So, yung regression line natin, nakita mo pataas yung regression line natin. And yung nakuha natin coefficient is 0.38. So, meron tayong low positive correlation. Systolic blood pressure and diabetes duration, we have 0.04 as our coefficient, so very low positive correlation. Systolic blood pressure and age, you have 0.01 as our coefficient, so very low positive correlation. With body mass index 0.08, so ang nakuha nating coefficient is 0.08, very low positive correlation. With literacy score, habang umaangat ang iyong systolic blood pressure, bumababa naman yung iyong literacy score. So you have negative 0.16 as the coefficient, very low negative correlation. Systolic BP and difference, so makikita mo naman, no, halos horizontal yung regression line natin. And it's probably logical kasi ang component ng difference ay HbA1c level tungkol sa asukal sa dugo. And then this one, presyon ng dugo. So, expected mo na kung meron mang correlation ang dalawa, very low. So, meron tayong 0.02 na coefficient. So, there is a very low positive correlation. Diabetes duration, 0.03, very low positive duration. Age, 0.1, very low positive correlation. Body mass index, 0.04, very low positive correlation. Literacy score with systolic blood pressure, negative 0.15. Very low negative correlation. Negative kasi pababa yung ating regression line. Difference again, negative 0.02. Very low negative correlation. Diabetes duration and age, 0.3. Low positive correlation. Now, mapapansin nyo dito, yung sa diabetes duration, di ba? Parang kada data points, may isang column lang siya. So, pag ganyan, ibig sabihin, walang in-between na value sa interval na to. Dito sa age, parang ganun din. So, susubukan natin kung yung Pearson correlation ba ay same lang kapag ginawa nating Spearman. So, remember ha, pag Spearman, continuous variable din or ordinal. So, punta tayo sa ating orange. So, sa orange, ang gagawin natin, click natin tong correlation, Spearman, close natin, scatter plot. So, pinagkukumpara natin is diabetes duration sa x-axis and then age sa y-axis. Duration. Ganon din. Pearson. So, yung nakuha natin sa Spearman sa pagitan ng diabetes duration and ano ba to? And age, pareho lang, 0.30 yung nakuha nating ano. So, yung Spearman, 0.3, Pearson, 0.3, pareho lang. Next is diabetes duration and body mass index. So, yung coefficient na nakuha natin is negative 0.04. So, there is very low negative correlation. So, sa pagitan naman ng diabetes duration tsaka literacy score, nakita nyo, yung regression line natin is halos horizontal. Tapos yung R dito sa mismong software is negative 0.00. So siguro more than 3 decimal places, 4 decimal places yung value na yon. Pero since i-consider lang natin na puro 0 lang talaga siya, so i-interpret na lang natin siya as no correlation. So pag no correlation, kapag yung regression line mo is horizontal, tapos yung iyong coefficient is 0, ibig sabihin, hindi mo i-reject ang iyong null hypothesis. So, pwede mo i-conclude na sa pagitan ng diabetes duration at saka ng literacy score, walang correlation ang dalawang variables na ito. Okay? Wala silang correlation. Next, diabetes duration and difference or the improvement in the HbA1c level. So, nakuha nating coefficient is negative 0.25, low negative correlation. Age and body mass index, so meron tayong pababa na regression line. So, nakikita mo, pababa yung regression line natin. And then, yung nakuha nating coefficient is negative 0.33. So, there's a low negative correlation. Ibig sabihin, habang tumatanda, okay, bumababa yung body mass index o yung BMI. Next is yung ating age. Yung regression line natin is pababa. Meron tayong coefficient na negative 0.2. So, there is low negative correlation. Age and improvement of the HbA1c level, there's a positive correlation kasi ang ating coefficient is 0.16. Very low positive correlation. Body mass index and literacy score, 0.05 ang nakuha natin coefficient. So, there's a very low positive correlation. Body mass index and improvement in the HbA1c level. So, nakuha nating coefficient is 0.08, very low negative correlation. Literacy score and the improvement in the HbA1c level, negative 0.1 na yung coefficient na nakuha natin. So, very low negative correlation. Okay guys, so check natin yung ibang data kasi ano ba yung pwede nating i-consider na pwede sa Spearman correlation. So, number 1, pwede siguro tayong mag body mass index, and kasi parang wala siyang may interval ba siya? Mukhang hindi wala. So, yung body mass index at saka diabetes duration. So, nakita nyo ba? Yung diabetes duration talaga meron siyang delineated interval. So, nakita nyo itong column na to, tsaka yung column na to. Mukhang siya separate talaga. Then, yung body mass index mo, mukhang may in-between values. So, kung check natin, may in-between values bang body mass index? Yes, may in-between values. Pero yung literacy score, wala siyang in-between values, pati age. So, subukan natin, na gamitin yung Spearman. So, click ko lang to. Okay, so, diabetes duration and age. Subukan natin. So, 0.30 ang ating Pearson coefficient. Spearman na to pala Yeah. So, Pearson coefficient natin ay diabetes duration. So, yung Pearson coefficient natin 0.30. Gawin natin siyang Spearman. Sino lang ba? So, diabetes duration and age. Wala, mababa pa rin. HbA1c. Kung saan naman, diabetes duration and literacy score. So, ito. Diabetes. Yan. Walang correlation sa Spearman. Ganun din Walang correlation talaga siya. Mapa Spearman, mapa. Yeah. So, literacy score. Ang pala natin, yung kanina pala, 0. Tama, sa third decimal, 0.005. So, i-consider na lang natin siya as 0. Actually, ito din So, yan. Sa orange, yung summary ng lahat ng correlation, dito mo makikita. So, kung ang x-axis mo is diabetes duration, so, i-click mo lang dito, diabetes duration, and naka-tabulate na kung alin sa mga ibang variables yung may mataas na correlation. So, for example, dito, diabetes duration versus HbA1c ng ika-16 na buwan. So, negative, so positive 348, then negative 2.99, diabetes duration and difference. Check nga natin, diabetes duration and difference. Diba? So, yun na yun, 2.5. Gawin natin Pearson. Diabetes duration. Iba talaga siya. Tama, 2.5. So, kapag Pearson, negative 254. Kapag Spearman yung ginamit natin, 299. Negative 0.299. Okay. So, check natin. Diabetes duration and 6-month HbA1c. Yan. So, yun lang. Yun lang yung kung paano natin makikita. So, for example, literacy score. Yeah, literacy score. So, sa literacy score, ang may pinakamataas sa correlation, Spearman correlation kung iisipin natin. Buksan nga natin ang ating table. So, sa Spearman, ang pinakamalaking score niya ay negative 0.89, and that is between literacy score and age. So, ano ba yung age? Yeah, so wala siyang in-between values. Okay? Pwede siya sa Spearman. Ano ba bang walang in-between? Hindi natin consider patient ID. Yeah. So, yan. So, literacy score, pwede mong Spearman, so 0.189. Then, kung Pearson, literacy score and age 0.202. Yan. Okay, so, dyan na nagtatapos ang ating video ngayong araw. So, kung marami kayong natutunan, please like this video and then subscribe to my channel. So, next time, mag-aaral tayo ng statistics, at remember, para sa topic natin ngayong araw, please, correlation does not mean causation. Okay? Hindi ibig sabihin na kapag umangat yung isang variable, siya ang dahilan, kaya din aangat o bababa yung isa pang variable. Hindi ganun yun. Okay? Correlation does not mean causation. Okay? So, ingat kayong lahat at like this video and subscribe to my channel.